Ready? All righty. Good afternoon. I am Ken Knuckles, Vice Chair of the City Planning Commission, and welcome to today's review session of the City Planning Commission. I am joined by Commissioners Benjamin, Cerullo III, to be precise, Commissioner Dweck, Gold, Goodrich, Kirmani, Mann, Marin. Commissioner Osorio is remote. Is he? Okay. And Commissioner Rampershad. Welcome all. We look forward, of course, to our new chair, Sadaya Sherman, joining us to chair the public meeting on Wednesday. Today we're going to begin with a review of 189-10 Northern Boulevard in Auburndale, Queens. The proposed zoning action would facilitate the construction of a building with ground floor retail, second floor offices, and a third floor community facility a little more than a half mile from the Long Island Railroad's Little Neck Station. This project will use the expedited land use review procedure, also known as ELRP, meaning it will go to the Community Board and Borough President for a combined 60-day review, followed by a hearing and final vote at the City Planning Commission at the end of June. Next, we head to Bushwick, Brooklyn, to hear about a mixed-use development with around 20 homes, a quarter of them income-restricted affordable, along with ground floor retail. Located at 132 Melrose Street, the building would include a green roof and be near Green Central Knoll Playground, Beaver Knoll Park, and the J, M, and Z trains at Myrtle Avenue. Moving to Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, the Commission will also learn about the Fort Hamilton Muse rezoning, which would facilitate a mixed-use building with around 300 new homes, with nearly 90 of them income-restricted affordable, as well as ground floor retail and community facility space. Located at 9305 Fifth Avenue, the project would be near Fort Hamilton Triangle, the B8 and B63 buses, and the R train at Bay Ridge, 95th Street. From there, we'll head to Bedford-Stuyvesant for a multi-site rezoning along Park Avenue between Spencer Street and Warsaw Place. These 5 buildings would contain a mix of apartments and educational facilities. In total, there will be nearly 400 homes, 100 of them income-restricted affordable, along with 4 private schools serving students from kindergarten to high school. The sites are close to B44, B54, and B57 buses, and the G train at Flushing Avenue and Myrtle Willoughby Avenues. On Staten Island, we'll review a proposal by the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation and Department of Citywide Administrative Services to purchase a 70,000 square foot lot to serve as a parks fleet maintenance facility at 336-346 Meredith Avenue in Bloomfield. With that, let's get started. Sarah.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Planning Commission review session for Monday, March 16th, 2026. The time is 1:10 and a quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map amendment in Queens Community District 11, and our presenter is Mary Charlotte Gitlin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
This is a private rezoning application for 18910 Northern Boulevard. This application was filed by Prince Street 606 LLC, and it is located in Auburndale Community District 11. It proposes a zoning map amendment to rezone from R3X and R32 districts to an R32 district with a C2 for commercial overlay. This action will facilitate the development of a new 3-story commercial and community facility building with a total floor area of just under 15,000 square feet. It will also address split lot conditions on lots 11, 12, 22, and 27, and make as of right the existing legally conforming commercial uses along Northern Boulevard. On May 10th in 2023, the CPC approved a similar application by the applicant for a zoning map amendment to change the project area to an R32 district with a C23 commercial overlay. The applicant later withdrew the application on July of that same year before the City Council vote due to a lack of political support. The applicant has reported to us that prior to starting this application, they spoke to the council member and the community board and they expressed support. On November 4th in 2025, voters approved New York Question 3, a ballot measure to revise the New York City Charter by adding Section 197E, the Expedited Land Use Review Procedure, or ELRP. This charter revision facilitates an expedited process for certain land use applications, including low-density rezonings like this one. So under this expedited review procedure, this project would undergo 90 days of public review instead of the typical 7-month timeline undertaken through the ELRP process. This enables a project like this to accelerate the timeline from proposal to approval. Moving back to this project's location, it's located along Northern Boulevard, a major commercial corridor that spans from Western Queens to Long Island and is characterized by a mix of commercial, residential, and manufacturing uses. The project area is within the outer transit zone and is located approximately half a mile from the Auburndale LIRR station. This train line connects from Port Washington and Long Island to Penn Station and Grand Central Station. The Q12 and Q13 buses are located approximately 1 block west from the project site, and the Q76 is located approximately 5 blocks east of the project area along Francis Lewis Boulevard. Northern Boulevard is also a thoroughfare for cars, in addition to the nearby Francis Lewis Boulevard and Utopia Parkway. The Clearview Expressway is located further east, approximately 1 mile away. The project area outlined in the dotted black line is split between R32 and R3X districts. The project area is surrounded by low-density residential districts, including R3X to the north and south of Northern Boulevard, and R2, R2A, and R4B districts to the west. An R32 district with the C22 commercial overlay is located to the east of the project site, and the C22 overlay continues uninterrupted along Northern Boulevard for nearly 2 miles. The surrounding area mainly consists of 1 to 3-story residential buildings for 1, 2, and multiple families, primarily within the R3X districts. And commercial buildings along Northern Boulevard are typically 1 to 2 stories and include restaurants, offices, and local retail establishments. There are also several auto-related uses. The majority of the project area was mapped R32 in 1961 and has not been modified since. A small portion of the project area was rezoned to R3X in the 2010 Auburndale Oakland Gardens Hollis Hills rezoning. The project area includes lots 10, 11, 12, 22, 27, and part of lot 5. The proposed development site, lot 11, is located at 18910 Northern Boulevard and has approximately 84 feet of frontage on Northern Boulevard and a total lot area of just under 10,000 square feet. Currently, it is unimproved and used for parking and storage of materials. Lot 10, on the corner of Northern Boulevard and 189th Street, is improved with a restaurant and accessory parking. Behind it, Lot 5 fronts on 189th Street and contains a 2.5-story single-family residence and parking garage. To the east of the proposed development site are lots 12, 22, and 27. Lot 12 is used as accessory parking. Lot 22 contains a legal non-conforming commercial and manufacturing building. And Lot 27 also contains a legal non-conforming commercial building. There are no known plans for any changes on any other lots in response to the proposed actions. This is a view of the development site facing south from Northern Boulevard. And this photo is of Northern Boulevard facing east, and the development site is at the right. Moving along, this shows the project area facing south from Northern Boulevard, and this image shows Lot 12. This is a view of the project area facing south again, and this image shows Lot 22. And lastly, this is Lot 27, again facing south from Northern Boulevard. The applicant proposes building a 3-story plus cellar commercial and community facility building totaling just under 15,000 square feet at 1.51 FAR. The applicant anticipates that the building will contain ground floor retail, second floor offices, and a third floor community facility. No parking spaces are required, though the applicant is proposing 26 spaces on the ground floor and in the cellar. The proposed development also includes several streetscape improvements. The 3 street trees are required, and in addition, the applicant proposes a front yard planting area within the 10-foot open area along the front lot line. To facilitate this development, the applicant is requesting a zoning map amendment from the existing R3X and R32 districts to an R32 district with the C24 commercial overlay. This would bring in existing commercial uses along Northern Boulevard into conformance and fix split lot conditions on lots 11, 12, 22, and 27. The existing R32 and R3X districts do not allow for commercial uses, and under the proposed actions, the allowed FAR increases from 1.0 to 1.6 for community facilities and increases to 2.0 FAR for qualifying residential sites within the greater transit zone, as per the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity Town Center zoning provisions. In conclusion, this is a private application filed by Prince Street 606 LLC in Auburndale Community District 11, and it proposes a zoning map amendment to rezone from R3X and R32 districts to an R32 district with a C24 commercial overlay. This action will facilitate the development of a new 3-story commercial and community facility building with a total floor area of just under 15,000 square feet. And it will also address split lot conditions on lots 11, 12, 22, and 27, and make as of right the existing legally conforming commercial uses along Northern Boulevard. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Is this the first ELERP listing post-adoption?
I'm gonna hand it over to Alec to talk about ELERP.
Hi, no, this is not the first ELERP. You saw that Sawmill Creek application on Staten Island, which was the resiliency acquisition. This is the first brought by a private applicant.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on the residential zoning, just the R32 versus R3X and what the implications are for the non-applicant controlled site. I think I may have missed that in the table there.
Go back. Yeah, are you talking about uses outside of residential?
No, just the residential.
Okay.
Yeah. So the R32, that's, oh, sorry, okay, I got it. Okay, I think I just misunderstood. The R32 C24 proposed has the 2.0 FAR for residential.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. I think I just misread the 1.0. Got it, and that's because of the City of Yes, the town center provisions.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, got it. So this would allow the vacant, or not the accessory parking lot just to the east of the site to be a more densely developed residential building if that eventually becomes a development site.
In theory.
Yeah, okay, got it, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. This is certified.
Thank you very much.
The second item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 4. Our presenter is Griffin Mills.
Yeah.
Sorry, thanks. This is a private application by Melrose Towers Corp. Proposing a zoning map amendment from an M11 to an M12A, R6A, MX22 zoning district, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix S to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH area with options 1 and 2. These actions would facilitate a new 6-story, 26,500 square foot mixed-use building with 18 dwelling units, 5 of which would be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH, and 6,500 square feet of ground floor commercial. This project is located at 132 through 136 Melrose Street in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 4. This is an aerial view looking northwest at the project area, which is highlighted in purple. The project area is located on Melrose Street, which is a 50-foot wide street between Evergreen Avenue and Stanwyck Street. The project area is about a half-mile north from the Central Avenue M subway station and a half-mile northwest from the Myrtle Avenue JMZ subway station. Numerous bus lines provide local bus service along Bushwick Avenue and Flushwick Avenue. The project area is located across the street from the mixed-use Denizen Bushwick complex, which was facilitated by the 2013 Rheingold rezoning, which consists of 2 buildings that contain 911 dwelling units. This complex was completed in 2019 and includes a fresh grocery store and other active commercial ground floor uses. Nearby community facilities include the New York City Department of Social Services, which has a SNAP and Job Center and is located on Evergreen Avenue, and PS 145, which is located less than a quarter mile away. Green Central Knoll Park is a 3-minute walk away and contains a playground and softball fields. Bushwick Avenue is located south from the project area and functions as a primarily north to south corridor in Brooklyn, connecting Broadway Junction to East Williamsburg. As illustrated here, the land uses in the surrounding area contain a varied mix of industrial, commercial, community facility, and residential uses. Much of the surrounding industrial lots are 1 to 2-story warehouse and distribution centers with parking lots. Melrose Street has numerous unimproved lots, and the development site is adjacent to a 1-story restaurant supply store. The residential blocks that surround the project area from the south, east, and west consist of 3- and 4-story multifamily residential walk-up buildings. The project area is currently zoned M11. Across the street from the project area, there is R6A, R7A, and R7A C24 zoning, which was rezoned as a part of the 2013 Rheingold rezoning. The surrounding residential blocks are zoned R6, and there's also R72 northwest from the project area. There's both M31 and M12 zoning across Evergreen Avenue to the north. The project area is within the boundaries of the Bushwick Neighborhood Plan, which is a draft plan that DCP published in 2019 after 5 years of outreach and planning efforts. The land use framework was built upon the existing conditions of the neighborhood, and in the plan, the project area was designated as a proposed mixed-use area. Mixed-use areas were designated to encourage the continuity of a mix of uses. Additionally, in the plan, the proposed zoning district for the project area was R6A M3. The project area was also studied in the New York City Industrial Plan, which DCP published in 2025. The project area is designated as a neighborhood industrial area, which is defined as having the greatest mix of uses that are closest to residential uses and transit. This is an aerial view looking southwest at the project area. The project area is highlighted in purple and the development site is outlined in blue. The development site currently consists of 2 empty lots and a 2-story warehouse with an office above. The non-applicant controlled lots in the project area are both 3-story multifamily walk-up buildings that are legally non-conforming and will be brought into compliance through the proposed M1 2A R6A zoning district. This is a view looking west on Melrose Street. You can see the project area on the left. The 9-story Denizen Bushwick campus is across the street from the project area. This is a view looking east on Melrose Street with the project area on the right. The DSS SNAP and Job Center is located in the background at the end of Melrose Street. The proposed development is a new 6-story, 26,500 square foot mixed-use development. The building will rise to a height of 65 feet, and there will be 6,500 square feet of ground floor retail, and then 5 stories of residential uses above. The proposed development includes 18 dwelling units, 5 of which should be MIH option 1. No parking is required or provided with the development. To facilitate the proposed development, the applicant seeks a zoning map amendment from an M11 to an M12A, R6A, MX22, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish an MIH area with options 1 and 2. The zoning map amendment seeks to change an existing M11 to an M12A, R6A, MX22 district. The proposed district will be mapped with a 70-foot offset from Evergreen Avenue and to a depth of 100 feet. It will be mapped 115 feet wide. The proposed M12A R6A district has a maximum building height of 95 feet. The maximum residential FAR with MIH is 3.9. The maximum manufacturing, community facility, and commercial FAR are each 3. Parking is required for 25% of dwelling units but can be waived if less than 15 spots are required. The proposed zoning text amendment to Appendix F would map an MIH areas with options 1 and 2 for an area coterminous with the project area. Option 1 requires 25% of the residential floor area to be income restricted for households on average making 60% area median income or lower. Option 2 requires 30% of the residential floor area to be income restricted for households on average making 80% AMI or lower. No RER was required for this project as the proposal does not increase permitted residential floor area by at least 50,000 square feet per local law 78. In summary, this is a private application by Melrose Tower Corp. Proposing a zoning map amendment from an M11 to an M12A R6A district and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish an MIH area with options 1 and 2. These actions would facilitate a new 6-story, 26,500 square foot mixed-use building with 18 dwelling units, 5 of which would be permanently income restricted, pursuant to MIH, and 6,500 square feet of ground floor commercial. The project is located at 132 through 136 Melrose Street in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 4. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Going once.
Commissioner Osorio on Zoom.
Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Knuckles. Thanks so much for the presentation. 2 quick questions from my end. Thanks so much for acknowledging the connection with the industrial plan. Given what you said, I was wondering if you can help us understand a little bit why an R6 as opposed to an MX designation here. Is there an opportunity to have industrial and first floors here, or was that ever part of the conversation? I mean, I know that the applicant is seeking an R6, but I just want to understand, since this is an M to R change, what's been the extent of the conversation in terms of, maximizing potential for mixed industrial residential here?
Oh, I want to clarify the proposed zoning district is an M12A, R6A. It is an MX district.
So thank you. So, but just can you explain then the extent to which the applicant is considering some type of industrial use on the first floor? It sounds like it's just retail, right?
Yeah, the applicant indicated in their application retail, but they can speak more during the public hearing about the intent of the ground floor.
Okay, but so far, I just want to confirm that this has been part of the conversation. So far, I want to be mindful that given this is an ELURP and we are certifying this proposal, I want to make sure that this is part of the scope.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We can talk with the applicant more and I can have them prepared to speak more on the designation for the ground floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And then the second question is,
Commissioner, I just want to clarify, this is a ULURP.
This is a
ULURP.
Not ELURP.
And because it's already mapped MX, it shouldn't be a scope issue because the MX is already in this certified proposal.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Appreciate that. The second question that I had really quickly was whether you can, the next time that we see it, whether we can get a little more information in terms of the sustainability measures for the building. I see in the rendering some interesting green roofs, but I was wondering if there's any renewables or what's the energy efficiency standard that we're aiming for here.
Yes, I can speak to the applicant and have them prepare some more information when they come back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Osorio. Any other questions? Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. Just a question of the boundaries, because I always, I get puzzled on these boundary questions. I get hung up on them a little bit. I know the department works with applicants. I think the department's position is sometimes the applicant proposes the boundaries. I assume there's been back and forth on this one. This one seems particularly, a little bit of a head scratcher in terms of how the boundaries became those boundaries. So can you just speak a little more to the boundaries for the R6A?
Yeah, I think the department leaned on the proposed neighborhood plan that can pull up where along Evergreen Avenue, the proposal was an R7A zoning, but the mid-block was an R6A, which is what the applicant ultimately went to.
Got it. So that the R6A was not for that full block? Sorry, maybe I just misread the plan.
It's for the mid-block, not along the frontage on Evergreen Avenue. The proposal in the plan was R7A.
Sorry, so the Bushwick Community Planning Study indicated just that block front for R6A?
R6A was the proposal for the entirety of Melrose Street, besides the frontage on Evergreen Avenue, which is R7A.
Right, okay, so that's what I thought. So the entirety of that frontage, except for Evergreen, was R6A under the communities, or whatever, the Bushwick Planning Framework.
Yes.
And the applicant is just proposing for their site?
Yes, and they're also proposing for the 2 residential buildings.
Okay, and so I'm just curious why the department didn't encourage them to think about the full block frontage along Melrose other than Evergreen?
There were some early discussions, but they don't own a lot of those lots, and I think we're not fully willing to, take the whole block front.
Take on the responsibility of that. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Certified.
The third item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 10. Our presenter is Katie Martin.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is a certification presentation for the Fort Hamilton Muse rezoning. This is a private application from 9305 Fifth Avenue LLC for a zoning map amendment for an R6B C23 and R5B to a R7X C24 zoning district, all within the Special Bay Ridge District, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate the development of a new 11-story mixed-use development, including approximately 220,200 square feet of residential space, or 292 dwelling units, 88 of which will be permanently income restricted. Approximately 12,100 square feet of commercial space, 1,100 square feet of community facility space, and 75 sub-cellar level parking spaces. The project's located at 9305 Fifth Avenue at the corner of Fifth Avenue and 94th Street in Bay Ridge, Community District 10. It's located in City Council District 47 with Councilmember Kayla Santos-Uoso. This is an aerial view looking north of the project area. The project area shown here in yellow is coterminous with the proposed development site. It has frontage on 2 streets, Fifth Avenue and 94th Street. Fifth Avenue is a mixed-use commercial and residential corridor, while 94th Street is primarily residential. There are several public transportation options for bus and subway service near the project area. The R subway line runs along 4th Avenue, and the nearest stop and terminus of the R line, the Bay Ridge 95th Street Station, has an entrance near Fort Hamilton Triangle. The R provides local connections to Manhattan and Queens, as well as connections to express trains to DNDN, as well as the LIRR Atlantic Terminal. There are several bus routes which operate in the area, including Select Bus Service S79, which provides service to Staten Island, and the B8, B63, S53, and S93. Fort Hamilton Triangle, shown here in green, just southwest of the project area, is a small plaza and open space in the neighborhood. St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Church and John J. Carty Park are a couple blocks south and southeast of the project area, respectively. As the Commission notes, the 9201 4th Avenue rezoning project is located northwest of the project area, shown here in aqua, and is currently under review by the CPC. The project area is an approximately 39,000 square foot lot on the southwest corner of block 6109 with 5th Avenue to the west and 94th Street to the south. The intersection of 4th and 5th Avenue is approximately 1 block southwest of the project area. 94th Street is a narrow street measuring 60 feet, while 5th Avenue is a wide street at 75 feet. The project area consists of 1 lot, which is improved with a single-story commercial building and surface-level parking lot. Surrounding the project area indicated in green are several community facilities, including PSIS 104 and FDNY Engine 242 to the north, and the Fort Hamilton branch of the Brooklyn Public Library to the southwest. This is the land use map. Within the surrounding area, you can see there is a mix of commercial, residential, community facility, and utility and transportation uses. To the north and west of the project area is a mix of 2 to 4 story mixed-use residential and commercial buildings, commercial office buildings, and community facilities, as well as an area subject to rezoning in 2021 at 9114 Fifth Avenue and the first mapping of MIH in Community District 10. South of the project area is a mix of 1 to 3 family residential buildings, 3 to 4 story mixed-use commercial and residential buildings, and community facilities. To the east of the project area are 1 to 2 family and 4 to 6 story residential buildings. This is the zoning map. The zoning districts mapped within the surrounding area include C82, R4, R41, R5B, R6B, R6A, and R7A districts, and then C23 and C24 commercial overlay districts. R4 and R5 are low to mid-density residential districts, while R6 and R7 contextual districts are mid-density residential districts. In 1978, the Special Bay Ridge District was created to preserve the neighborhood's low-rise character, to ensure contextual development, and to protect neighborhood-scale commercial areas along main corridors. The project area was rezoned from R6 to R6B and R5B in the 2005 Bay Ridge rezoning. So this shows the proposed development site here in yellow from the parking lot entrance and curb cut on Fifth Avenue. Here you can see the proposed development site is improved with a 1-story commercial building and surface parking lot. In the background, you can see the mid-density residential buildings which abut the project area. This view is from further north on Fifth Avenue, so you can see the extent of the parking area on the site. In the background, you can see the Verrazano Bridge, and on the right and left hands of the photo, you can see the mixed-use residential and commercial buildings near the project area. And then here we're looking at the project area from Fifth Avenue, looking north, but we're at the intersection, just south of the intersection with 94th Street. To the left is Fort Hamilton Triangle, and to the right are mixed-use commercial and residential buildings, which are representative of Fifth Avenue in this area of Bay Ridge. The proposed actions would facilitate the development of an 11-story mixed-use commercial and residential building totaling 233,400 square feet. The proposed development will include 292 dwelling units, of which 88 would be permanently income restricted, as well as approximately 12,100 square feet of commercial space and 1,100 square feet of community facility space. The proposed development will have a base height of 102 feet and will rise to a max height of 111 feet. Parking would be provided in a subcellar accessible via curb cut along 94th Street, and the applicant is currently proposing 75 parking spaces, more than are required by zoning. To facilitate this project, the applicant seeks 2 actions, a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F. The zoning map amendment seeks to change the existing R6B C23 and R5B districts to an R7X C24 district. The project area is part of the Special Bay Ridge District. R7X C24 district is a residential district with a commercial overlay that allows a maximum residential FAR of 6 with MIH, an FAR of 5 for community facility uses, and an FAR of 2 for commercial uses. After a base height of 105 feet, buildings can top out at 145 feet. The applicant also proposes a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to map MIH coterminous with the project area, creating permanently income restricted housing via MIH Option 2. Option 2 requires 30% of residential floor area to be permanently income restricted at 80% AMI. This application requires a racial equity report on housing and opportunity. The area median household income for the project area is $88,927, which is higher than the median income for Brooklyn and New York City. The applicant proposes to provide MIH units that meet 40%, 60%, and 80% AMI income band limits. In Figure 1, we can see that the population of the Bay Ridge-Dyker Heights NTA is predominantly white and Asian, with a percentage of white non-Hispanic residents at 51%, which exceeds both the borough at 35% and the city at 31%. The Asian non-Hispanic population at 27% is higher than borough and citywide percentages. Figure 2 shows a percent change in race and ethnicity from 2010 to 2020. The largest growth was seen in the Asian non-Hispanic population, which has experienced a growth of 42% compared to an increase of 43% borough-wide and 34% citywide. The Black non-Hispanic and Hispanic populations have also seen large population increases in comparison with borough and citywide percentages. The white non-Hispanic population decreased 10% in this NTA compared to an increase of 8% borough-wide and no change citywide. Figure 14 shows a percent change in housing supply and population from 2010 to 2024. Between these years, housing units in this area increased by 1%, while the population increased by 9%. In summary, this is a private application for a zoning map amendment from an R6B C23 and R5B district within the Special Bay Ridge District to a R7X C24 district, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate the development of a new 11-story mixed-use residential and commercial building with approximately 292 dwelling units, including 88 units of income-restricted housing. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Hi.
Commissioner Benjamin.
I just wanted to make the point again that I've made before, that when you look at the expected rents of, for the rent restricted apartments versus the market rate, you'll note that the rent restricted in many cases is higher than the market rate. So I question why we're doing that, because who would take a moderate income apartment if a 3-bedroom for $3,600, when if they just went to a market apartment, they would rent it for $3,200. What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think that's a super fair question. You know, whenever we're looking at like the existing rents out on the market, we're talking about like obviously likely older buildings, right? And also we're looking at like a relatively like limited potential, like you know, a number of apartments out there. Whenever we're looking at like these newly built ones, the reason that the rents are looking higher than the asking rents kind of out there in the wild is because they have to have like the financing. So like whenever we're looking at the MIH units, the 80% AMI, like we're talking about the affordable units, they are still lower than privately financed development would produce at like without MIH being present. If we're talking about like new versus new.
But the 100%, which would be 100%, which would be 29 units, would be estimated to be higher.
Yeah. We are also.
How would you think in the future? We've seen this a couple of times, right, and I've brought it out a few times. How we address this. This is not the outcome that we all want to see. And I understand what you're saying about, well, the new apartments, the number for market rate reflects older apartments. But generally speaking, particularly in this neighborhood, older apartments are going to be larger overall than the new apartments. The new apartments, a 1-bedroom is going to be much smaller than an older 1-bedroom.
Right.
So there's a balancing of which is more desirable for people. So I would just want you to give some thought to how we address this problem within our MIH designations, because we are seeing it fairly regularly.
Yeah, totally understand. I get exactly where you're coming from. I think the last point that, we can make here is that these are permanent, like the rates here for the, for even the 100%, that'll stay the same. I mean, obviously there will be some marginal increases compared to like market rents, which can increase as much as a landlord wishes to raise it in a year. And so while it may seem higher at this point, in the future, it'll be more stable over time. And so it will be more affordable to like families or individuals on the long term.
It may, unless that distinction continues, and then even in a rent-regulated apartment, the landlord can, and often does, charge less than the rent-regulated rent. If in fact the rent-regulated rent would be at or higher than the market would generally choose. So that's...
Yeah, I totally get it. It's a policy question, not necessarily something for
Thank
this
you.
exact one.
Good. Other questions? Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, just to repeat the point I was making earlier about boundaries and these rezonings, and I mean...
Oh, sorry, let me go to something relevant at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not really about this application. I would think it'd be nice if we started taking a slightly, I think, harder look at what we think the right boundaries are for some of these rezoning districts. Since we're going through all the effort of going through these processes, and these just, half block, mid block, carved out, it just feels like we're not necessarily, we're just doing the least we can to get some housing built in these neighborhoods. We're not necessarily taking a serious look at what the right boundaries are here. There's an R7A, I think, just up the block here too.
Yes, there is, on the other side of 92nd Street.
Yeah, and, again, the risk of sounding like an old-timer, just remember the days when the department would collaborate a little more with private applicants and just do a department private applicant rezoning and take some of the burden off applicants when the boundaries actually should be a little bit larger. And so I just, again, it's not directed really to you or this application, but just more broadly, especially with the last Melrose Street, that I think we should just push a little bit harder on the boundaries question to make sure we're creating boundaries that are actually planning boundaries, not just sort of development project boundaries.
Yeah.
So that's my my 2 cents. So thanks for indulging.
Yeah, totally understand. The one thing I will note here is that just north of this project area, there is a historic, it's the firehouse there. So it's not a landmark, but it's like a one site. And so there were just some concerns over rezoning that specific property.
Is that the corner parcel?
No, it's in the middle here between the edge. And no, the corner parcel used to be a KFC, not a White Castle. We learned about that one a couple weeks ago. But so, yeah, there were some concerns over rezoning a historic site. But I do think it's a fair comment.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. This is certified.
Thank you.
The fourth item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 3. Our presenter is Josh Vogel.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Vice Chair.
Good morning, Josh.
It's green. Can you hear me? Just waiting for the slides. But I'll be presenting the Park Avenue, Brooklyn rezoning application. Okay, so this is a private application by Park Avenue Rezoning Partners, LLC, for a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from M11, M12 to M14, R61, and M14, R7D, and a zoning text amendment to map MIH. The actions would facilitate 10 development sites across 5 blocks, including 4 private schools, yeshivas, for over 2,500 students, and 391 dwelling units, of which 101 would be income restricted per MIH. Here we're looking at the location of the project area, which is in the northwestern corner of Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood in Community District 3. The project area is surrounded by South Williamsburg to the north, Bed-Stuy to the, or in Bed-Stuy, but further to the south and southeast, Wallabout to the north, and the Navy Yard to the west, and Clinton Hill to the south. The BQE that we can see in the top left corner runs north with an interchange at Flushing, which is a truck route and the northern border of the project area. Directly east is the recently constructed District 3 Department of Sanitation facility on Nostrand, which is also a truck route, followed by NYCHA's Marcy Houses. The project area is composed of 5 blocks along Park Avenue, which is 70 feet in width, and intersected by narrow 50-foot wide streets, including Spencer, Walworth, and Sanford streets. Myrtle Avenue is directly south and is also a truck route. The Myrtle-Willoughby Avenue G-Train subway station is 3 blocks east, which we can see in the bottom right next to Marcy Houses. There are also a number of bus lines that service the project area, including the B44 SBS Express bus that runs along Nostrand and Bedford Avenues. Here's a land use and zoning map. The surrounding area reflects a mix of light industrial, institutional, commercial, and residential uses. North of Park Avenue, land uses shift toward industrial and distribution activities near the BQE and the Brooklyn Navy Yard, while neighborhood retail is concentrated along Myrtle and Park Avenues. Community facilities, including yeshivas, synagogues, and volunteer ambulance services are prominent throughout the area. Nearby open space resources are limited and include Marcy Playground and several smaller neighborhood parks. Existing zoning in the project area is M11 and M12, manufacturing districts mapped in 1961. The MX area to the west, in M12 R6A district, was rezoned in 2001 as part of the Flushing Bedford rezoning, which permitted residential uses, partially in response to a number of BSA variances that were being requested in the area during that time. Adjacent residential districts are characterized by 5 to 7-story residential buildings and some smaller walk-ups, including R7A and R7D along corridors like Myrtle. The project area was designated as a neighborhood industrial area in the 2025 NYC Industrial Plan, which has the greatest mix of uses and closest to residential uses and transit. The project area is also partially in the coastal zone. We can see here the northern half of the project area, separated by Park Ave in the middle, is in the coastal zone. So next I'm going to walk you through some site photos of the project area. Bear with me, it's a fairly large project area for rezoning across the 5 blocks. And I'll note that all the proposed development sites are applicant owned. So this is a view of the south side of Park Avenue. We can see the Hatzola ambulance service site for ambulance service and also some local retail to the left. Both ends of this block frontage are proposed for residential with ground floor retail. Here we're looking on Park Ave, looking south down Walworth Street towards Myrtle Avenue. In addition to the residential with ground floor retail along the Park Avenue frontage, the mid-block brick buildings, which we can see kind of mid-block in the distance here, on the 50-foot narrow Walworth Street are planned to be new yeshivas. Moving east on Park, we're looking towards Sanford Street. The applicant's pallet and tire businesses are proposed for new residential with ground floor retail. Here we're looking south along the east side of Walworth Street from Park Avenue towards Myrtle. We can see cars parked partially on the sidewalk, which is a common condition due to the very narrow streets and sidewalks in the project area. Material storage from local businesses on sidewalks are also common across the project area, as we can see in this photo, further restricting sidewalk widths. As I mentioned, the applicant proposes mid-block yeshivas on both sides of this street, which I'll further detail a little later on. This view is the other side of Walworth at the same intersection on Park Avenue, looking southwest. An applicant-owned 1-story retail building containing a bakery, shipping business, children's clothing store, and sewing supply store are all within this residential building and proposed for, or all within this retail building and proposed for residential with ground floor retail. Here's a view of Park Avenue with the existing Central Talmudic Academy on Sanford, from Park Avenue looking down Sanford. And on the right here with the green awning is the Central Talmudic Academy. Note the narrow sidewalk and street causing the school bus to park partially onto the sidewalk. Here's another view of one of the residential development sites on Park Avenue and Walworth looking west down from Park Avenue. And here the south side of Park and Walworth looking towards Myrtle. Residential is proposed in the foreground on Park with Yeshiva's mid-block on both sides of the street. Now moving down Walworth, but looking north this time towards Park. These are the two brick buildings I mentioned that are currently HVAC supply building on the left and a non-conforming yeshiva on the right, both proposed for new yeshivas. Now we're looking northwest from Park along Warsaw Place. The site on the left is a car rental proposed for residential with ground floor commercial. The heavy machinery seen here on the sidewalk is another common condition and reflects the active industrial businesses operating in the project area. Now looking at the north side of Park Avenue between Walworth and Spencer, the one-story retail building seen here on the left includes a party and plumbing supply company and is proposed for residential with ground floor retail. Yes? Before you leave that. Sure, I'll go back. Oh.
The residential high-rise that's adjacent to...
in the distance.
In the distance, yeah.
Yes.
What is the zoning there?
So that's actually in the M11 or M12, and it's not residential. It's actually using the 4.8 community facility FAR there. So it's office.
Oh, it is?
Office with other community facility uses, newly constructed.
All right. I thought it was residential. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Wait a minute, can I?
Yeah.
Is it office or is it community facility with dorms?
So the website lists it as office space. They use 4.8 community facility FAR to construct it.
So it could be dorms.
It could be. Yeah.
Okay, please, continue.
Of course. Let me just catch up. So now we're looking, let me get my notes. Okay, so now looking north on Park Avenue, between Walworth and Spencer, up Spencer, the two-story building on the left here is a bedding store and healthcare center, and it's the only residential development site planned for an expansion over an existing building. So just to be clear, out of all the residential sites, this is the only one that will not be completely new top to bottom. It will be an expansion on top of this existing community facility building on the corner on the left here. And just beyond it is the non-conforming, non-complying three-story warehouse, which currently houses Yeshiva Betzrim Satmar. Continuing moving north, looking on Spencer back towards that same intersection on Park, we see a vacant lot on the left proposed for the Beth Hana Yeshiva. The adjacent curb cut in the foreground, again on the left, is a part of that recently constructed community facility office building that we just spoke to. On March 13th, a notice of completion of draft environmental impact statement, or DEIS, was issued. The DEIS identified significant adverse impacts with respect to open space, transportation for both pedestrian and traffic, and construction noise. Specifically for transportation, incremental demand from the proposed actions would significantly adverse impact 6 sidewalks. At this time, one sidewalk impact would be fully mitigated in the weekday afternoon peak hour. DOT has identified potential mitigation measures for the remaining 5 sidewalk impacts, which include things like widening the sidewalks and eliminating parking lanes. However, at this time, the applicant is not electing to pursue these mitigations. Mitigation measures can continue to be explored between certification of the DEIS and publication of the FEIS. However, if no mitigation measures are implemented, these impacts would remain unmitigated and result in unavoidable, significant adverse impacts. And now getting on to the proposed developments. Across these 5 blocks, the applicant proposes 10 development sites. This application was centered around the creation, legalization, and expansion of private schools, yeshivas. Additionally, the rezoning will facilitate 6 mixed-use residential buildings. Starting with the yeshivas, which we can see here in yellow, they would provide just over 2,500 school seats across the 4 sites and over 200,000 square feet, 3 of which would be new developments, seen here in yellow, Site C, H, and G. Then Site B in the top, in the darker blue navy, is non-conforming and would be brought into conformance. The 3 new yeshivas are all proposed at 5 stories and would top out between 60 and 75 feet without setbacks. They would feature accessible roof terraces for students. The applicant is also proposing a voluntary street wall setback of 5 feet, given the yeshiva sites are proposed on mid-block locations along narrow 50-foot wide streets. I'll now briefly detail each yeshiva site. First, Site B at 48 Spencer is non-conforming yeshiva Litzarim Satmar that currently operates without BSA approval and would be brought into conformance through the proposed actions. The 3-story yeshiva would have 315 school seats at 35,000 square feet. Site C, the Beth Hana School at 49 Spencer Street, would be 497-seat girls' high school and would be 45,000 square feet or 3.6 FAR. Site G is an expansion of the Central Talmudic Academy. Is there a question? Oh, of course. An expansion of the CUT, a K-12 yeshiva that currently operates with the BSA special permit at 84 Sanford Street. The new development would expand both north and south on Sanford and west through the block onto Walworth Street. In total, this campus would accommodate over 1,400 students with over 130,000 square feet of floor area, or just over 3.6 FAR. Lastly, Site H, Yeshiva B'nai Ahavas, Israel, at 88 Walworth, which is directly across from the Central Talmudic Academy that we just looked at, would accommodate just under 300 students at 27,000 square feet. And here's an illustrative rendering of the 2 yeshivas on Walworth, looking towards Park Avenue, with Site H, Yeshiva B'nai Ahavas, Israel, on the left, and the western wing of the Central Talmudic Academy on the right, which would go all the way through to Sanford Street. So moving on to the residential proposed developments, these 6 sites would line Park Avenue, ranging from 7 to 11 stories, with a total of 391 units. 101 would be permanently income restricted per MIH. This view looks west down Park Avenue from Warsaw Place, with sites F and E on the left and right, respectively. We can see the 6 residential sites here in yellow. In total, these proposed developments would be 394,000 square feet of floor area, ranging between 4.8 and 5.6 FAR. Approximately 67,000 square feet of ground floor retail would be provided. Site A on the corner of Park and Spencer would be the extension above the existing 2-story community facility building that I spoke to earlier, and the only residential site with community facility floor area. To facilitate the proposed developments, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area and a zoning text amendment to map MIH. The zoning map amendment would rezone the project area from M11 and M12 to M14R61 and M14R7D, extending the existing MX4 district directly to the west. The M14R7D would be mapped at a depth of 100 feet along Park Avenue to facilitate the proposed residential uses while activating the non-residential ground floor uses. The M14R61 district would be mapped along the narrow north-south streets, Spencer, Walworth, and Sanford, to facilitate the yeshiva development and conformance, as educational uses are not currently permitted in the existing M11 and M12 zones, while still allowing M uses with the option for residential development. M14R61 permits a community facility FAR of 4.8 and a residential FAR of 3.9 with MIH. Buildings can top out at a height of 125 feet. M14R7D permits 5.6 FAR for residential uses and 4.66 for community facility, both at a height of 125 feet. Both districts permit commercial and manufacturing FARs at 2.0, and parking is not required within the inner transit zone. The applicant proposes a zoning text amendment to amend Appendix F of the zoning resolution to designate the project area as an MIH area with options 1, 2, and 3. Option 1 requires 25% of floor area set aside at an average of 60% of AMI. Option 2 requires 30% set aside at an average of 80% AMI. And option 3 requires 30% set aside at an average of 40% AMI, ensuring permanently income-restricted housing in any residential development. Or sorry, yes, 40% AMI for option 3. The applicant's racial equity report found that area median household income for the project area is $76,000, which is lower than the median income for both Brooklyn and New York City. The applicant proposes to provide MIH units that meet 40%, 80%, and 100% AMI income band limits. In Figure 1, we can see that the population of the Bedford-Stuyvesant West and East NTAs is predominantly Black non-Hispanic at 44%, which exceeds both the borough and the city averages. The Asian non-Hispanic population at 25% is higher than the borough and citywide percentages. Figure 2 here shows percent change in race and ethnicity from 2010 to 2020. The largest growth was seen in the white and Asian non-Hispanic population, which experienced the growth of 189% and 135% respectively. The Black non-Hispanic population has seen a decrease of 22%, more than double the borough and citywide percentages. Figure 14 shows the percent change in housing supply and population from 2010 to 2024. From 2010 to 2024, housing units in this area increased by 19%, and the population increased by 15%. In summary, this is a private application by Park Avenue Rezoning Partners, LLC, for a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from M11 and M12 to M14R61 and M14R7D, and a zoning text amendment to map MIH. These actions would facilitate 10 development sites across 5 blocks, including 4 yeshivas for over 2,500 students, and 391 development units, of which 101 would be income restricted per MIH. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benjamin.
I have a number of questions about this proposal. I do know the area, and the first part is a zoning question. Since the applicant does not propose any manufacturing on these sites, why are we rezoning it to a mixed use instead of residential?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Commissioner. And of course, I can let the applicant speak more to their rationale. But by having a MX district, since there are active M uses within the project area, it would allow them to stay in conformance and allow for existing M uses.
Other than some storage type facilities, are there active manufacturing in this rezoned area?
There are. So there are warehouse, transportation.
Yeah.
I just had the other ones up.
There's not a lot of activity going on
mainly
in
manufacturing,
those sites.
Transportation, and warehousing.
Right. There's not a lot of activity going on in those sites. I think we can all agree on that.
There's about 19 businesses total, not all of which are manufacturing.
So I'm concerned about that part of it, that this is clearly intended to be residential, and it's residential in a location that could still support manufacturing. I'm concerned about the yeshivas because, generally speaking, there are buses that bring the kids to the yeshivas, and this is not a wide street. You showed the picture, even with the manufacturing, where the buses are parked partially on the sidewalk, and when they're dropping kids off or picking them up, they're parked across the street, and no one can get by in a vehicle, or many times even a bicycle. So how is that treated in the environmental review? I know the environmental review doesn't always look at illegal transportation movements, but this is rife throughout the neighborhood as a problem.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and really appreciate the sentiment on the school safety issues. The applicant worked with DOT throughout the DEIS process, and DOT provide a host of mitigation measures, some partial, some full. I mentioned some of them, but removing curb parking, widening the sidewalks, and the applicant decided not to pursue them at this moment, but until the publication of the FEIS, which from my understanding is before the CPC or at the CPC vote, those negotiations can continue, and they still have the opportunity to work with the CPC, with DOT and the department to go through with some of those mitigation measures.
But we do know, in looking at the existing yeshivas that are throughout this neighborhood, that they do park on the sidewalks and over the sidewalks, and that I suspect they're going to continue to do so. So how do we permit these 4 yeshivas that are on a fairly narrow street, knowing that it is likely to be a transportation and traffic problem at best? And when you say that the applicant hasn't agreed to these things, what is our enforcement tool? If in fact the FEIS says these things would mitigate these traffic impacts, and the applicant says, but I'm not doing them.
Yes, thank you for the question. So,
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. As the DEIS is a disclosure document that
Correct.
discloses A, the impacts, and B, what mitigation measures are feasible. And if they,
and which ones are unmitigated, whether by choice or otherwise.
and disclosing that if the mitigation measures are not implemented, that the impacts would remain unmitigated. So if they decide to not pursue any of the what have been determined during the DEIS analyses as feasible mitigations, some partial, some full mitigations, then the CPC could approve a fully unmitigated significant adverse impacts for this application.
Or we could disapprove because of
could,
the significant.
That is
but
correct.
Is there any, once these mitigation measures are identified, is there any enforcement of them occurring?
So it really depends on, and thank you again for the question, on which, so I guess like you talked about the vehicles, machines parked on the street that we saw in the site photos. That's kind of separate enforcement, local PD, then enforcing things like sidewalk widenings or school crossing guards or things like that. And depending on which mitigation measure, there are ways to memorialize that through different legal mechanisms.
Although there's no restrictive declaration here because this is merely a rezoning, so there's not a mechanism by which we can tie the applicant to these particular mitigations.
We do, in restrictive declarations, reflect necessary mitigations and make them a condition of permitting milestones, for example.
Right, but this is a rezoning.
Right, but I don't understand that we're without the ability in this context to reflect in a restrictive declaration required mitigations. But whether a given measure is a required mitigation and whether that measure is the kind that can be feasibly implemented as a restriction that runs with the property is another question entirely. And so I think in this context, we should have a more textured discussion about what is possible once we are closer to the culmination of environmental review and your vote, because we'll have a clearer picture there about what options could be available to the commission.
Okay. And if you could ask the applicant and make sure that we get a distribution of the apartment sizes?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Marin.
I share some of the same concerns. Thank you, Chair. I share some of the same concerns Commissioner Benjamin expressed, but I will add to her request, which is by building, please break down AMI, rent, by building and plan so we can see what's anticipated being built. I know that's not part of the requirement here, but it would be interesting to see that, understanding that we're looking for, or the community has been asking for larger family size units, so understanding what that breakdown would be appreciated.
Yes, thank you for the question. And just so I'm clear, are you asking right now for me to go through the bedroom sizes or as a follow-up?
Well, both. So what you have here is basically the racial equity report, right? And this talks about the affordable units only, the MIH units. Correct. Is that correct? So it would be helpful to have by building entirely understanding what the whole gamut is of market rate, MIH, what those sizes are, what those rents are.
Absolutely. That's not something that's been provided yet by the applicant team as it's illustrated, but we'll ask them for that and we can follow up in one of your packages.
Other questions? Thank you, Josh. This is certified.
Thank you.
Sorry, Vice Chair, I have some questions. I have my raised, my hand raised.
Okay.
We'll bring it back.
Commissioner Osorio has questions.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. Just really quickly, wanted to follow up on a couple points that have been raised and maybe expand a little bit the scope of the questions. Number one, in terms of thank you so much for your clarification on the significant adverse impacts that have been identified. I was wondering if the next time that we see this, we can get a little more information on the mitigation strategies that have been discussed so far to mitigate the open space significant adverse impact. It sounds like the mitigation strategies discussed so far could fully mitigate that, and I would love to hear or see a little bit more detail in terms of, the extent of it. They're listed in the DEIS, but I would love to see more if that's possible. Thanks so much. The other question that I had was on direct displacement of businesses, and so thank you so much for your clarification earlier. I'm reading that associated with the 19 existing businesses, there could be up to 145 employees displaced. And so, of course, not all of them are industrial, but I'm wondering if there's been, and even though this hasn't been considered to be a significant adverse impact, because it's not affecting a specific industry more than, it's expected to be manageable. I'm wondering if you can share what are the strategies in place to potentially relocate these employees, or what's the plan here? Because, again, this is part of the affordability discussion.
Yes, thank you for the question, Commissioner. And since these businesses are all applicant-owned, I can get a response for them. And I will note that the increment is actually a positive 51 additional jobs, despite the 159 loss. But to your point, that most of them are going to be school positions. So, yeah, we'll follow up with the applicant and get a better sense of what they plan to do with the existing businesses and employees there.
Thank you. So the other question that I wanted to ask you is this is of course an important change in land use from what's otherwise continuous array of land zoned for manufacturing. And so I wanted to know, this is more of a question for the department, what is the status of the Flushing corridor exercise that we've been discussing for a while now, in terms of understanding, so from a land use point of view, so like where is the department's analysis in terms of, you know, big picture, to what extent is this still an active industrial area? And what is the composition of those industrial uses, number one? But number two, if we were to be rezoning for mixed industrial and residential, what is that looking like? I wanna understand how this fits into the larger picture. Again, given the fact that this is closer to that core of land zoned for manufacturing.
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. With respect to the private application in front of us and the just starting certification, noted, and we'll get back to you on the larger question about Flushing and the Wallabout area and the future look for that.
But just to clarify, this is not a question for the applicant. In previous discussions, the department has explained that there's been a corridor study in the making, just to understand, so like, again, to assess a little bit, and maybe in the light of the industrial plan, perhaps that was clarified. I just want to understand from the department's point of view, how does this fit into the larger vision for industrial manufacturing along the corridor? Given that, again, this is Flushing, or closer to Flushing as we've been discussing lately.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes, it is in the center of that, and that study is ongoing. Director, would you like to expand on that?
Hi there, Alex Summer, Director of the Brooklyn office. So unfortunately, we're still waiting for the release of the funding for that study. So we hope for that to be happening this year. That would allow us to continue our both existing conditions analysis and forward-looking recommendations. So we haven't yet released the funding for that work.
Thank you, Alex. That's totally understandable. And maybe as we continue the discussion on this project, if you can help us sort of like guide us a little bit in terms of, how at least how can we interpret, or any information that you can share in terms of perhaps building on the research that was done for the industrial plan. How does this fit into that larger puzzle? I just want to be mindful of, changes in zoning away from, especially closer to the core.
So just pulling up this map again, it is in the neighborhood, hopefully in the neighborhood industrial area from the recent plan.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, but again, if you can share additional information from your assessment in terms of, the implications for this change, I would appreciate that. We don't have to do it now, but I would just like to understand the implications from your point of view in terms of the future of industrial manufacturing here.
Noted. Thank you for that, and we'll certainly follow up on it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other questions on this item? There being none, this is certified. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. The fifth item on our agenda is a certification of a site selection and acquisition in Staten Island Community District 2. Our presenter is Kari Bailey.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
I hear myself. So, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kari Bailey. I'm a planner in the DCP Staten Island office, and I'm here to present the New York City Parks 336 Meredith Avenue Fleet Maintenance Facility project. So this is a public application from the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, or DCAS, and the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, or also known as DPR, or just New York City Parks. And they're seeking the actions of a combination of a site acquisition and site selection of real property by the city. These actions would facilitate the purchase of a ready-to-go site of approximately 70,000 square foot lot for the establishment of a new New York City Parks fleet maintenance facility at 336 Meredith Avenue in an M3-1 district in the Bloomfield neighborhood of Staten Island Community District 2. So here you can see the project site here is outlined in red. It covers about 1.6 acres of land. And as you can see from this aerial photo, despite being in an M zone or industrial area, there's many surrounding protected green spaces and wetlands, which include but are not limited to the Meredith Woods and the William Davis Wildlife Refuge to the west of the project site. Not pictured here, but it's notable that the Fresh Kills Park is just a bit further south of that wildlife refuge. To the north of the project area, there is Sawmill Creek Marsh, which the Commission saw this at review session, at the last review session. And there's also the Amazon campus, which is an 8-minute drive from the project site. This project site has convenient access to the West Shore Expressway, or Route 440, which is a 5-minute drive west of the site. And if you look closer to the site in red here, it fronts Meredith Avenue, which you can see running parallel to the red outline project site. Meredith Avenue dead ends just north of the site, and South Avenue dead ends at the site. The nearest public transit to the site is a 4-minute walk, which is the S96 limited bus stop, which terminates at the West Shore Plaza, which you can see here, it's labeled the DMV. And here you can see what the actual shape of the lot is. And in the spirit of Shaolin and keeping the Wu alive, one could say that the shape of this lot actually looks like half of the Wu-Tang logo. And if you know, you know. You can also see here more clearly where Meredith Avenue and South Avenue dead end near the site. This lot is somewhat sandwiched between other lots, and it does not go up to the shoreline. I mentioned previously that the site is ready to go, meaning that Parks will take this site as is, and they don't need to make any improvements to the site other than a fresh coat of paint. So it's ready to go to use the site for their fleet maintenance facility, and this is part because the property previously served as such a use. It used to be an MTA bus depot and repair facility, which was in operation for about 15 years, and the MTA vacated this space in this site in January of 2025. So this site is already suited for Parks operations because it has enclosed space for vehicle repair operations, as well as sufficient outdoor space for fleet parking and equipment storage. And the photos that you see here are actually from when it was operating as an MTA bus depot repair facility. And the site map you can see here, it's comprised of 3 standalone buildings that are already existing, and it totals approximately 17,273 square feet. There is a paved parking area that can accommodate up to 80 city buses or approximately 15 to 20 standard cars. And Building A is a 1-story, it's an open, unfinished space that's specifically designed for use of vehicle repair. Building B is a 1-story, smaller building that consists of offices, employee break room, locker room, and restrooms. And building C is a 2-story warehouse/office building, which the ground level contains an unfinished open garage for 4 vehicle repair bays. And the second floor also contains offices, a kitchen, and a bathroom. So this proposed facility would initially serve a staff of approximately 12 mechanics and support personnel from the New York City Parks, Fleet, and Science Division. The facility could accommodate approximately 10 additional employees in the future, or 22 staff in total. And employees would access this site through their personal vehicles or public transportation. The standard operating hours would be from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., but could vary depending on the operational needs. The peak travel times would occur from 5:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. and between 2:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. as employees are arriving and departing from their shifts. Additionally, between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 2 p.m., there would be a steady flow of vehicles from around the borough as they're anticipated to arrive and depart from this facility for servicing. And this is the land use in the project area, which is mostly industrial. It's highlighted in that purple. And then the site's immediate neighbors include construction and construction-related businesses like the Big Apple Ready Mix, the concrete supplier, and WWC Corp., which is a demolition contractor. There's also a 2-story home, which you can see it's highlighted here in yellow, and that presumably predates the zoning, but signage on the site indicates that WWC Corp. Is using that as that house as their offices. And also to the right, highlighted in red, it's commercial and office, and that is the West Shore Plaza commercial complex, which includes a DMV that I mentioned earlier. And you can kind of see it in this map, but there's also overlapping green space, such as wetlands and open space shore, that's kind of embedded within these commercial and industrial uses. And this is what the site looks like. This is a view of Meredith Avenue, just north of the project area, and this is where Meredith Avenue dead ends. This is a view of the parking lot from inside the lot, and you can see the demolition company neighbor in this photo. And this photo is taken with Meredith Avenue behind you. And lastly, this is a photo, this is a view of Building B, which is garage and offices, and Building C, which is offices, and it's looking towards the site entrance on Meredith Avenue. The entrance of the site is actually right below that avenue label. And so, what's the need for parks to have this facility? Well, New York City Parks, Staten Island Fleet they're sharing a space that's operated by the City Department of Sanitation. That's within the Fresh Kills Park. Their existing site here is outlined in black, and the red one is their proposed new site. So they're somewhat close. They're a 12-minute drive from each other, but because Parks and DSNY are sharing this space, and they both have the need for increased fleet sizes and operational demands by both agencies, this arrangement has become unsustainable. And New York City Parks has been asked to vacate by DSNY to accommodate their growing needs. So having this site would address those operational needs by providing a centralized, appropriately equipped facility that's capable of serving approximately 200 NYC Parks vehicles, which include heavy-duty and specialized equipment that's essential to the borough-wide park maintenance and forestry operations, for example, beach maintenance and emergency response. So this proposed project is necessary to maintain Parks' existing service levels and meet their current and projected fleet maintenance needs for Staten Island. And also, given the lack of alternative suitable sites on Staten Island, this proposed project represents the only feasible means of addressing this operational need. So in summary, the applicants, New York City Parks and DCAS, are seeking a combination acquisition and site selection of real property by the city to facilitate the acquisition of a 70,000 square foot property and the site selection of the New York City Park Fleet Maintenance Facility. These actions would enable the purchase of a ready-to-go site, becoming a city-owned and New York City Parks managed fleet maintenance facility at 336 Meredith Avenue in an M3-1 zoning district in the Bloomfield neighborhood of Staten Island, Community District 2. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. As is noted here, this is a purchase by the city as opposed to a lease. And you will recall I had asked you during our review about the employee parking. Will that be on site? I know this is an industrial area, but will there be parking for the employees on site?
Yep. So I mentioned that so looking at the site map, there is a paved parking area that can accommodate up to 80 city buses or 15 to 20 cars. But you can see, like, around some of the buildings, there's also parking. So employees could potentially park there if they don't take public transit. But there would be a designated area within the parking area for employees.
Okay. Thank you. Questions on this item? Commissioner Cerullo.
And just in line of the Vice Chair's question about parking. So just want to understand sort of the activity that is expected to take place, and just some of it will be clarification. I understand the hours of operation. Makes sense. Obviously, the earlier all of this is happening is better than it being in the middle of rush hour or people getting around. But the site, there were different numbers and different examples of vehicle capability. This site holds 200 vehicles. Is that what, did you say that? I mean, did I hear you correctly, that upwards of 200 vehicles?
It could, yes. So when it was an MTA bus depot, which you could see all those white tops of the buses, that's how much it could.
But that's the form of how it's capable of managing that number of vehicles. It's not 200 parking spaces. It's, you could fit 200 vehicles sort of lined up and piled next to each other on the site. Okay. And so just to connect to the question that the Vice Chair asked, what does Parks envision the layout of this site to look like? I know it's sort of turnkey for them, but is the equipment and the maintenance, the subjects of the maintenance, whether they're trucks or machinery or whatever Parks is going to be maintaining on this site or doing maintenance on this site, what's the layout of it? Is there spaces for things to go to be fixed? Are there spaces for them to park? I'd love to get an idea of the design of this site, because to say 200 buses fit here, which was interesting, because then sounded like more buses could fit than cars at one point. Another reference to the parking, which was confusing because I can't imagine why you could get more buses than cars on the site. So I feel like I missed something there. But if there's upwards of 22 employees, they're all going to have their own car. There's just no question about that. So that's 22 parking spots. But I don't know what the rest of the site ends up looking like, and that would be helpful to know. And while we know the hours of operation, it would also be helpful to know what they expect the activity to actually be. Like how many vehicles are going to be coming and going from the 5:30 to the 3:30 time? Those are just general questions. I realize this is going out to the community and we'll learn more, but those are my initial questions just based upon that. Procedural question is, I know there were pieces of this that were necessary to occur before certification. Can I assume those things got checked off? Like, was the land use application revised? Did we get a letter from the borough president? Did those things happen that Parks required, or perhaps we required?
Yes. So as part of the city charter, they had to submit a letter to the borough president to give the borough president an opportunity to weigh in if they supported this project or they had any other alternative sites. And the borough president didn't propose any other sites and said he supported it.
He did. So we got this, that sort of executed letter that Parks had sent for the borough president to.
Want to clarify?
I know better than the non-response is the response to our understanding.
And non-response is.
It didn't propose any alternatives or voice any concerns.
Okay.
We're able to move forward through the public review. This will also go to the borough president's office as part of ULURP.
Understood. I just remembered that Parks there was, as part of Parks' package, we'll call it, there was a letter that went that I thought needed to be signed by the borough president. So I wondered if it had,
Sufficient I's were dotted and T's were crossed to get us into public review. And if the borough president has an opinion that he wants to codify, we'll
Understood. Okay. I appreciate that.
No concerns were raised during that part of the process that would have precluded us from getting this into public review.
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and actually regarding your other questions about how they're planning to use the site, Parks, they haven't provided a site plan, but I could ask them and I'll pass on the other questions. But the site actually, so just to tell you more about what kind of vehicles will be stored there. So they will have their seasonal beach equipment, winter equipment, or emergency equipment, and probably for tree cutting. So one part of the site will be storage of those vehicles, and they won't always be using them because it depends on the season or what they need. And then another portion of vehicles, or besides employee parking, is other vehicles across the borough that are coming to get repaired. And that would mostly happen within the repair garages, but they could be some spillover of those cars parking in the parking lot too.
So it's I'm sorry. Even though it's called a maintenance facility, it's part maintenance facility, but it's also part garage and I don't want to use the word storage. You don't store a car generally, but it's a parking facility and a maintenance facility for the equipment and vehicles for the Parks Department for Staten Island.
Yes, but it's more specialized equipment because there's other vehicles that are stored at specific parks that are specific to that park. So.
Right, but not every vehicle that will be on this site will be being repaired, is what I'm saying. That's I got it. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Gold.
So just to get a better sense, can you tell us how many employees will be there each day?
So Parks shared that initially there would, let me look back at my notes, as many as 22 employees, but initially when they first move into the site, it won't be.
Got it. So when it maxes out, it's at 22?
Yes, that's what they provided.
So it does sound like there's a lot more storage there than action. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. This is certified.
Thank you.
The sixth item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a city map amendment in Queens Community District 11, and our presenter is Juanita Halim.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Vice Chair.
Good afternoon.
So today I'll be presenting St. Mary's Hospital demapping for pre-hearing review. This is an application by St. Mary's Healthcare System for Children, who is proposing a change to the city map to eliminate 2 privately owned unbuilt streets and to discontinue and close a portion of the street.
The proposed action would support the construction of a new 357 square foot entrance vestibule to the hospital's main lobby, along with 2 drop-off canopies and enhanced internal driveway circulation. The applicant is seeking this action to remove existing encumbrances on the hospital property and facilitate these site improvements. This application was certified by the Department of City Planning on December 1st, 2025. Here is the land use area map. The project area is located within the R2A zoning district, surrounded by R12 zoning district, comprised of low-rise and low-density detached homes on small lots. Here we can see the view of the project area. On the map, the solid thin black line shows the street line, the thin gray dashed line shows the tax lot boundaries, and the solid purple line shows the building footprint. North is oriented to the left. The project area and development site are coterminous with the St. Mary's Healthcare System for Children Hospital campus, shown in blue on the slide. The area proposed in the map, as you can see, is highlighted in yellow and includes map but unbuilt segments of both streets, and the segments are 70 feet wide and properly owned by the applicant, except for the city-owned portion, as shown in the orange dashed dot dashed line. The streets are not built and are not used for public access or transportation. To summarize, St. Mary's Healthcare System for Children is requesting a city map amendment to eliminate map but unbuilt privately owned portions of 29 Avenue and Little Neck Boulevard, and to discontinue and close a portion of 29 Avenue. These streets are not used for public access and currently restrict the hospital's ability to optimize its campus layout. These improvements are intended to support more efficient and accessible operations without increasing the hospital capacity. On February 2nd, 2026, the Queens Community Board 11 passed a conditional favorable recommendations of this project with 31 in favor, 2 against, and 0 abstaining. The application was recommended for approval on the condition that buses serving hospital patients no longer park on adjacent residential streets or along the park. In addition to that, all buses must comply with the 3-minute engine idling regulation and avoid idling beyond the permitted time. And on February 19, 2026, the Queens Board President held a public hearing, and on March 3rd, 2026, issued a conditional favorable recommendation of this project. It was recommended for approval with the conditions related to hiring and contracting for future hospital operations and projects, and expressing support for Community Board 11 conditions. That concludes my presentation. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. The 7th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 11, and our presenter is Lucia Capuccio on Zoom.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Good afternoon, yes.
Perfect.
Just let's get the presentation up, Lucia.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, good afternoon, Vice Chair Knuckles and the commissioners. This application is 14714 Northern Boulevard rezoning, which was certified on January 5th and is now back for pre-hearing. This is a private application by Northern 147-149 LLC in the Murray Hill neighborhood of Queens, Community District 7, to facilitate the development of a new 11-story mixed-use residential and commercial building with approximately 334,300 total square feet, containing approximately 35,700 square feet of ground floor commercial retail space and 389 total dwelling units, including 97 income restricted units. Next slide, please. The applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment from an existing R5 C12 zoning district to an R7X C23 and R5 zoning district, and a zoning text amendment to map mandatory inclusionary housing, option 1, coterminous with the project area. Next slide, please. On February 9th, 2026, Queens Community Board 7 voted 30 in favor, 3 opposed, and no abstentions to pass a resolution to recommend approval of this application. Next slide, please. On February 19th, the Queensborough President held a hearing on this application and submitted a recommendation of approval with conditions. Conditions pertain to MWBE and local hiring goals, and decreasing the number of studio apartments and increasing the unit mix of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom apartments to better accommodate families. The applicant rep will be here on Wednesday to address any and all questions raised by the commission. If you have any questions for me now, I'm happy to answer them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. Questions? Okay, this is on for hearing on Wednesday.
Great, thank you.
The 8th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of zoning map and zoning text amendments, special permits, and the city map amendment in Brooklyn Community District 1. Our presenter is Lucia Marquez-Reagan.
Hello, Vice Chair Knuckles and Commissioners. This is a pre-hearing presentation for Monitor Point, certified by the Commission on December 15th, 2026. This is a private application by Go Key LLC, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, and the Greenpoint Monitor Museum on related action. The project is located in the Greenpoint neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 1. The proposed development consists of 3 new buildings totaling approximately 940,000 square feet and would contain 1,150 units, units in general, including 300 income restricted under MIH Option 1, commercial space, community facility space, including a permanent home for the Monitor Museum, and waterfront public access areas. The project area in yellow is located just north of Bushwick Inlet Park, alongside the East River waterfront, and consists of 2 lots on Block 2590, Lot 1 and Lot 25, and the northern half of former Key Street. Nearby transportation includes the Greenpoint Ferry Station, Greenpoint Avenue and Nassau Avenue G stations, and the B32 bus. To facilitate the proposal, the applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area, zoning text amendments, a large-scale general development special permit to waive loading requirements, and a city map change within a separate application, application 250326 MMK. In addition, the applicant is seeking a chair certification pursuant to 62811 to demonstrate compliance with waterfront regulations. The applicant proposes to rezone the project area from an M31, R6, and R6C24 zoning districts to an R6, R6C24, R8, and R8 C24 zoning districts. The applicant seeks to amend Appendix F to designate the project area as mandatory inclusionary housing area pursuant to Options 1 and 2. Options 1 require that income-restricted housing be set aside at 25% of the residential floor area at an average of 60% area median income, AMI. Option 2 requires 30% of the residential floor area be provided at an average of 80% AMI. The applicant is proposing 1,150 units, 300 of which would be permanently income restricted under MIH Option 1. In addition, text amendments to amend the special bulk regulations applicable to waterfront blocks within the BK1 waterfront access plan area. Bless you. As the first project area, as the first MIH project being mapped on waterfront blocks within the WAP area, first the applicant proposes to amend 62361 to establish and reference MIH bulk regulations within the special bulk regulations that apply to the waterfront. Second, to accommodate an MIH FAR and tower-based envelope for R8 districts that's higher than the current R8 special bulk regulations. The text would permit a maximum height of between 500 and 600 feet for R8 districts within the BK1 WAP area. Third, to align with proposed demapping of Key Street that is currently mapped as parkland, the text would remove park designation from parcel 19 of the BK1 WAP maps. Lastly, the text would allow large-scale general developments within the BK1 WAP area to waive or reduce the number of required loading berths if certain findings are met. Currently, there are special FAR and bulk regulations that apply to a portion of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg waterfront and were created as a part of the 2005 area-wide rezoning. Specifically, waterfront blocks mapped with R6 and R8 districts within the WAP geography have unique heights and FARs that are customized for the waterfront and also accommodate voluntary-based income-restricted housing. For example, R6 districts permit a maximum FAR of 6.5 and a height of 360 feet. Monitor Point would be the first application to map MIH in the BK1 WAP area where these special regulations apply. The applicant proposes to add a reference to MIH FARs for R6 and R8, which would be aligned with underlying MIH FARs. So instead of an R8, have a custom FAR as it does for non-MIH developments, R8 with MIH would have a maximum FAR of 7.2. To elaborate more on the text amendment related to the WAP parcel, the 2005 Greenpoint-Williamsburg rezoning designated parcels for zoning lots within the WAP, including parcel 19, as previously mentioned in certification, is owned by the Monitor Museum and was designated as public park. In conjunction with the proposal to demap a portion of Key Street that is currently mapped as parkland, the applicant seeks to remove the park designation from parcel 19 and referenced on the BK1 WAP maps. The applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to the Large-Scale General Development, LSGD, for a series of waivers to modify rear yard regulations, modify height and setback regulations, modify tower size and tower width of walls and waterfront yard depths. The proposed envelope would be established as a part of the special permit approvals for the 3 buildings. Waivers to height and setback and tower width waivers are requested for building 1. Waivers to height and setback and street wall height and location waivers are requested for building 2. Waterfront yard waiver is requested for building 3. Additionally, bulk special permit approvals, the bulk special permit approvals include building design and controls that address aspects including bulkhead screening of mechanicals, building setbacks, street wall articulation, and transparency requirements. And the applicant proposes a city map change within application 250326 MMK to remove the park designation on mapped block 2590 lot 25 and the northern half of former Key Street. The area to be demapped was originally mapped as park in 2005 as a part of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg rezoning. A notice of completion of the draft environmental impact statement was issued on December 12, 2025, and identified significant adverse impacts with respect to transportation, traffic, and pedestrians, as well as construction as it relates to traffic, pedestrian noise. Mitigation measures have been identified in the DEIS and will be explored further in the final environmental impact statement, FEIS. On January 20th, 2026, Community Board 1 held a public hearing, and on February 12th, 2026, voted conditional favorable with 26 in favor, 9 against, and 0 abstaining. In your packet and posted online includes a more detailed memo of the board's recommendation. Related to the actions of the project, maintaining a 40-foot wide waterfront public access area adjacent to the proposed museum building, with additional conditions regarding Bushwick Inlet Park funding, income restricted unit breakdown preference and locational requirements, transportation conditions relating to the G train, adjacent bike lane, and construction on site, public access, new ERUMTA facility and museum deliverance, and a request for public restrooms within the development. On March 11th, the Brooklyn Borough President held a public hearing, and the department has yet to receive comment. In addition, to clarify with the Commission, at certification, the department was asked about the infrastructure areas on site. This is a map of the easements on site. There's one easement that runs north-south along West Street. There's an additional Department of Environmental Protection Infrastructure that is located east-west along Key Street, which DEP and the applicant team are coordinating for access requirements. There's not yet an easement for this infrastructure. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I just had a question, then I'll open it up. On the demapping of the park parcel, that has to be replaced, does it not?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
The demapping of the park parcel under the development proposal. Don't, under state law, you have to replace that parkland?
So this site is mapped as park in the city map, but it is not parkland. It was never acquired. It was always privately owned. It was just outlined in 2005 as part of the potential Bushwick Inlet Park. It was not acquired as park, if that answers the question.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Benjamin?
One quick question. Are we going to see site selection for the replacement MTA facility?
It's my understanding that we will not see a site selection, but the applicant will be here on Wednesday and can answer that question, can speak more to
although the applicant isn't the MTA.
The MTA is part of the applicant team.
And they will be here on Wednesday?
I can confirm.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Chair. Back to the park for a second. Although it's not state park, it is a city park. Does it count? It's not a park. I see somebody shaking their head back there. So it doesn't count to the city's open space.
It's not a city park. It's a map park on the city map, but it was always privately held.
Correct.
And never acquired by the city.
I do remember that. I was just wondering if it was ever counted, because I know that the idea was to enlarge in that park to the north. So my question is just trying to figure out, was that ever counted into that park square footage that was anticipated? That's all. If the answer is no, the answer is no. I'm just making sure that we are cognizant of the fact that we have to have a certain ratio of open space to development. So that's what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, I'm happy to confirm an answer to that question or have the applicant speak to it on Wednesday.
That's fine. If the answer is not now, it's fine. I will get it next. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to add anything? I saw some movement there. No? Okay.
We'll get a definitive answer.
Okay, all righty. Other questions? Okay.
Commissioner Osorio is on Zoom.
Oh, Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Vice Chair Knuckles. Thank you, Lucia. Thanks so much for the presentation, and thanks so much for the materials that were shared. I very much appreciate the thoroughness of responding to our questions. Thanks so much for the department for facilitating that. I had a couple quick follow-up questions. So, in terms of the decrease in open space, the overall decrease in open space, I'm wondering if so the letter is pretty clear in terms of, their conclusion in terms of why they think that the addition of open space or the creation of new open space could partially mitigate the loss, the overall loss. But I'm wondering if and I apologize because I'm not going to be there tomorrow, but if we can maybe ask the applicant to follow up with additional details in terms of exactly why do they think that that's the case, where I see a larger decrease in the amount of open space for 1,000 people. The second question has to do, and again, thanks so much for the department for facilitating this, in taking a closer look at the wind analysis, and again, appreciate the fact that there was actually a wind tunnel analysis performed here. The conclusion is that the wind impacts will not be significant. But I wonder if the analysis, in addition to looking at potential pedestrian impacts, it should look at wind impacts on an actual open space, which in fact may be slightly different given the fact that some of the wind speeds could be slightly higher than expected. So if the applicant can follow up a little bit in terms of that clarification, where what is their interpretation of the wind impact in some of the sensors as they come closer to the park, and whether the wind impacts may be okay for pedestrians, but may not be okay for passive open space users. I would love a little bit more detail on that. the other quick question that I had was, so now acting as the coastal commission, and given the fact that there are recognized ecological complexes in and around the project site, I was wondering if the department could share or could request an actual concept from DEC in terms of, their assessment and or whether they are they believe that the impact on the recognized ecological complexes in and around the park would be under control. I'm very concerned about this, especially some of the components of the WRP consistency form that are not very clear, or at least do not provide enough information in terms of the impact of the project on wildlife and ecological resources more broadly.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm happy to share those questions with the applicant to speak more to, and follow up to the request about DEC.
Thank you. And then just one last question: if the applicant could provide a timeline of when the resources that when the investment on the relocation of the MTA site will happen, just to understand sort of like when will those resources actually take place within the sort of like long-term evolution of the lease, that would be useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. This is on for hearing.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Items 9 through 10 were presented at the last review session, and there'll be continued hearings for them on Wednesday at the public meeting. So there are no presentations today. Noting that there was a follow-up memo in your materials on item number 10, 46 Nelson Street, rezoning 2. So the outcome for items 9 through 11 are to continue to the public hearing. We do not have any other business before the commission today.
What about 509, Madison?
Continued.
Continued as well. Okay. All righty. There being no further business, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Time
you all.
is 3:08.